Well, Dave Ramsey, that bastion of incredible financial advice, has to advise a man who is newly married and has adopted $100,000 worth of debt, meaning he signed a marriage license with a woman who had $100,000 in what I presume is student loan debt. And it doesn't sound like she has a high income skill to pay it off with. So he is looking now for Dave's advice on what to do, because he was debt free before him and his wife got married, meaning he essentially paid $100,000 for a wife. Who again doesn't have a high income skill to pay off this debt. So let's take a listen to what Ethan is needing advice from Dave Ramsey on here.
So I guess just advice on how to tackle this debt as promptly as possible while still being able to enjoy being newly married and kind of establishing our house and our bringing in furniture.
So Ethan needs advice on navigating this debt, and one day he says he wants to start a business together with his wife. Now, what poor Ethan doesn't seem to realize then is that he's already signed what's essentially a business contract, which is called, another term for it is a marriage license. And what's unique about this contract is that this marriage license contract can be broken at any time for any reason, just because someone isn't feeling happy and fulfilled. Now, it didn't used to be that way. It used to be hard to break a marriage contract, but today, again, you can break that anytime, any reason, whatever, just done. Now, with that in mind, here's what Dave's advice is to poor Ethan, who has a young wife and a lot of debt.
You up for something?
Yeah, so let's get after it. So working extra jobs, living on a budget, the both of you being in agreement, not you dragging her along because you have anxiety about debt, but her being in agreement that, hey, this is a mess, we're both going to work on this, we're both going to lock arms, we're going to put equal emotional effort into it, and we're going to sacrifice to win for a short period of time. We're going to live like no one else so that later we can live and give like no one else. Your business opening is going to be down the line after you're out of debt, have an emergency fund saved, and then save up some money to start your business. Right now, you're just going to work your butts off, both of you, and both of you aren't working enough. You got to work more.
Yeah, so you're not working enough. You both got to work your butts off. Don't spend money. Don't eat out. No vacations. Don't buy any furniture. You got to hunker down and just work your butts off. That's Dave's advice. Basically his advice is this Gen Z woman, this Gen Me woman, she should behave like your grandma. Behave like your grandpa's wife. You remember the stories about when your grandpa came home from World War II and he had one arm because his other arm got shot off by the Germans, he got strafed by a Stuka, and he built the house that they lived in with one arm, while grandma shot squirrels for dinner while she was pregnant. And she never complained. They lived in the attic of some older woman's church, or some older woman's house from church. They lived up there, just lived on sandwich meat, some bread for all those years until finally Grandpa got the house built. And then they moved in. They didn't have electricity for the first 6 months, didn't even have running water in the house, and they lived in that house for 50 years. And so Dave Ramsey, he says, your new wife, she should behave like that. Except modern woman doesn't do that. Come on. We're talking about Generation Me here. And with Generation Me, it's a material girl living in a material world. You know that Madonna song? Come on, you know that song. Because the boy with the cold hard cash is always Mr. Right. You know, that Madonna song right now. That was the women in the 80s. That was in the 80s. You know, that wasn't even Generation Me. I mean, what should poor Ethan do? I mean, I think Dave's advice is a quick way to be heading to the divorce court once that $100K is paid down. You know, if poor Ethan, if he was to call the post-millennial man here, I might advise, this might sound a little unorthodox, but I might advise him to get a post-nuptial agreement with his wife in order to keep his marriage together. I think he might want to do that. I mean, he could spend 5 years working his tail off to pay down this $100,000 debt, and then, I mean, what would stop his wife from just jumping ship and running off with Mr. Perfect? That happens all the time. I mean, at least he'd have some kind of bargaining chip when he says, hey, you can't just run off and take our kids and leave me and whatever. I mean, at least I'd give him something to bargain with. Maybe he could grab the pastor and go over there and try to talk some sense into her, and maybe that would help out. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, you know, 92% of divorces filed right now are filed by the woman if she is college educated. I mean, that's a pretty crazy statistic. Only 8% of divorces are filed by men if their wife has a college education. I mean, that's pretty staggering. I don't know. I know that is pretty unorthodox advice. What do you guys think out there? You know, give me a comment. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Let me know what you think out there with Dave Ramsey's advice. Well, this is the Post-Mill Channel. Christ is winning. He is building his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Until next time, this is the Post-Millennial Man.